I have a question about the verse of the Holy Quran. ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أحياء بل أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. What is meant by أحياء and يرزقون?
Read the full verse.
I don't have it with me.
Read the full verse.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون.
آگے.
فرحين بما آتاهم الله من فضله ويستبشرون بالذين لم يلحقوا بهم من خلفهم ألا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون يستبشرون بنعمة من الله وفضل وأن الله لا يضيع أجر المؤمنين.
Right. And prior to this?
الذين قالوا لإخوانهم وقالوا لو أطاعونا ما قتلوا.
No, that's not. This is here. The Holy Quran speaks of them as ahya against those who die otherwise in a different way. Now this is a very important statement regarding those who gave up their life intentionally with the full knowledge of what they were bargaining for. And for the sake of God, what they held in their hand, they gave up, threw away. So the first reward from Allah should be life, which they had given up. Those who die naturally, they have to die anyway. There are no intentions involved. Even the soldiers who die in wars, they do not intend to die during the war. They try their best to escape. They never wish for the death. But here we are talking of a category of people who even requested Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to pray for them that they must become martyrs. So this is the quality of their will, their resolution to give up the life, the best gift that God gives His creation, the life itself, for the sake of Allah. What do you expect Allah should do? He should keep that life away for another billion years and then return it to them. This is unthinkable of God, we know from the Quran. So their life, spiritual life, is restored immediately. But that life cannot be understood by us. In the Rabbihim yurzaqoon, that shows their life is sustained by that something which is responsible for keeping a maintenance of life in the hereafter. So that rizq which is given after death, we don't understand, because the Holy Quran has mentioned it elsewhere. That you will think there are fruits, you will think there this and that. Allah will say no, mutashabiha, they are similar things but not the same. So that is why it is difficult for us to realize the form of life they are given. But they are not given this form of life, because in the Rabbihim yurzaqoon further clarifies it, that they are given not this rizq but that rizq which will be provided to the people who die. So there is no doubt special, but one thing is yet to be settled: whether these people will continue to live in that conscious state till the doomsday, when everybody will be resurrected from the dead, or will they gradually go into a state of slumber from where they will be further developed into the full form of life after death, which will be granted by Allah to all the human beings who die. Good or bad, they will be created again and given a new form of life. This is the big question which has to be answered. I believe that they retain their consciousness fully after the death in the form of life which is mentioned in the Quran. But after a while, they are returned to the alam barzakh, where they go through the same process of development, which is essential, which is a prerequisite for the resurrection in the form of a highly developed soul, which is so different that we cannot even imagine what we will become. So they will not be deprived of that. So there are two phases according to me. One, when they give up life, like other dead people, there is no barrier between their consciousness before and the consciousness after. As if they went into the next world, knowing, saying, remembering everything, you know. That is a special treatment given by God to them. But after a while, I can prove it from the Quran, they must be returned to that state of development, which is destined for everyone. Because on the day of resurrection, we know that when people will be raised, shuhada will not be waiting there standing by and saying, we are already here. You see, the Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says that when he wakes up from that blast which will, make everybody soon, he will find Moses already there. That's all we read about it. But nowhere do you find mention in the Holy Quran or in any hadith that all the martyrs in the path of Allah were already there alive. And we said, oh, you died, you martyred in that, you were martyred in that war, and you in that war. That total silence on this subject indicates that they will also be raised again. And if they are not raised again, that will be an injustice to them. Because the consciousness they retain belongs to the consciousness of this world, which is nothing as compared to the consciousness which they will gain after the full development of the soul. Basaraka al-yawma hadid. Inna basaraka al-yawma hadid. Inna nahi usse pehle? Acha. And your sight is now sharpened, so that you can see things which you would never imagine to have seen before. So why should these special people who gave up their lives be deprived of that very special development which will transform their existence into something which can not even be imagined by us? But the life of the martyrs after can be imagined, because Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told, was it Abdullah bin Roha who?
Abdullah bin Umar.
Who was martyred, and his son was walking a bit, Jabir bin Abdullah tha wo? Anyway, whoever it was martyred in Uhud. His son met Ahmad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He was a bit downcast and depressed. Naturally, he was suffering for the loss of his dear father. Abdullah bin? No. For God's sake, no. He's a very different person, of a different character, Now, this Abdullah's son, when he met Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam after the Uhud, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam inquired from him, should I not tell you something which will make you happy? He said, yes. He said, when your father was presented to God after his martyrdom here, I am particularly quoting this hadith for you to understand that the life which is mentioned is not the life we know here on earth. It's a different life. But the consciousness is the same. These are the 2 points which I have made. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, inquired from his son, shouldn't I tell you something which will make you happy? He said, yes, please. He said, your father, when he was presented to God, God was so happy with him, the way he died, the way he offered his life. He said, what should I reward you? What should I give you in reward? I'm so happy with you. He said, my only desire is that you return me to earth again. Make me alive again on the same earth. And then I will fight in your cause and have another martyrdom. Then return me again and do it 100 times to me. Because the pleasure of offering my life for your cause is the best reward I can dream of. God told him, yes, but you have asked something which cannot be done. It's against my decree which has passed, that none of the people who return to me after death will ever be returned back to earth. None will be revived. So this should be read along with this verse. It proves two things, most certainly, that those who are martyred, do not share that life on earth, and they will never return to earth. Secondly, their consciousness is exactly the same as when they left the earth and they left this world, because he remembers this pleasure and everything, very clearly. So that is why I said the consciousness is the preliminary consciousness, not the ultimately highly evolved consciousness. For that, they must be put into that state of slumber in which the souls will develop further and on and on and on, like in the uterus of the mother, the unborn babies, the infants, are developed through their embryonic stages. When they complete all these stages, the difference between the first phase and the last when they are delivered is immense, unbelievably greater. So this is the difference between the consciousness of the soul as it is delivered from the body and the consciousness of the soul which is raised after the day of resurrection or during the day of resurrection. See? So this requires that the shuhada also should be made a part of that development. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, the son of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallam, I'm saying alayhi salatu wasalam because he said, Lo asha lakana siddiqan nabiyya. He, according to a tradition of Rasulullah sallam, is being nursed in the heaven for the development he lacked in the world here, so that he could, make up for the loss of that development which he could have met with if he were permitted to develop here on earth. So these are the things which deliver a very clear message to us, that we should not equate these things too literally. That nursing does not mean, that some nurse like here is, feeding him. It only means the spiritual phenomenon will take place, which will develop the talents of that child further to their full maturity. Right? I've said more than you asked, but I think this is all relevant and there's no harm in giving a longer answer sometimes. Yes. This brings us to the conclusive part of this discussion, which is very important and has to be clearly explained and understood. Hazrat Ibrahim, the son of Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, seems to be alive in his state. Hazrat Ibrahim himself, the Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, is also mentioned as taking care of those children who died earlier than their age of majority. So what is the difference between them and the shuhada then? They are also alive, and this, the feeding of the baby Ibrahim indicates that in the Rabbihim yurzaqun. See? So how could the son of Rasulullah sallam be still alive in that sense and being fed? How could Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam could be in that state of life, which is mentioned in Hadith about him, and Rasulullah sallam and other prophets to be dead? And in the Hadith, except for that brief mention of that shaheed, as far as the hereafter is concerned, shuhada are not mentioned, but prophets and others are of course mentioned. Even ordinary peoples are mentioned. It is said that if you wail too much the departed one, your dear one who has departed, if a child misses his mother and or the mother misses her child overmuch, then the soul of the mother there will be in pain and discomfort. So that means she is also alive. Otherwise she could not be in pain and discomfort. So if this is so, then what is the difference between the life of shuhada and the life of these people, and what is the state to which I referred earlier, that shuhada will be then sent to that same channel? That state of life is more conscious than we have. Gradually it gains more conscious than the consciousness we have. And their conscious is never severed completely. But with a difference, they are not yet ready for the final evolutionary stage where they will be fit to be entered into heaven or hell for that matter. That evolutionary stage of soul is far too advanced. So not only the shuhada but all others are also being passed through that phase. So when we have equated all the people with shuhada in this way, what should be the difference? Why should this verse specifically and so categorically mention them to be alive? You think they are dead. There is one solution to that which comes to my mind, that it may refer to the time of gaining consciousness and departure from this world. According to Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, every soul does not rise immediately to its destined place in the heaven, but has its contact with its material body and the grave for quite some time to come. That, I believe, does not happen to the shuhada. You see, ordinary souls who are attached to the worldly things, they remain attached to the matter somehow out of their love for the matter, that somehow they are attached and are not totally severed from their ties with this world. So they suffer far more for the loss of their dear ones and so on and so forth, and the life they have left behind. But those who are pious people who already have abandoned the life on earth for higher values, so that their attachment with the life here on earth is just nominal and formal. Prophets belong to that category. So Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that the saud of prophets takes place within 3 days, while the rest, some of them may hover here till 40 days, some even beyond. It all depends on what sort of soul you have, what sort of deeds you have done here on earth, and what is your attitude to the life here. So shuhada are alive in the sense, according to the Quran, as I believe, and it does not create any contradiction, that the Saud does not take even a second's delay. They martyred here and they rise there without any break. And this is psychologically, this should be psychologically expected, because they must have broken all their ties with all their relatives, all their neighbors, all their possessions, before they decided that we must die in the cause of Allah. That psychological preparedness with the will to give up life absolved them of that transitory phase of lingering attachment with the life of this thing even after their departure. So, considering all options and possibilities and viewing the life after death from the Quran and from the point of view of the Quranic statements of Hadith, this is what I can finally suggest. But still, the mysteries of the unknown can't be entirely understood by man. There is an attempt on my part to correlate all these things and suggest the idea that here the life of the shuhada is the immediate consciousness gained by them after their so-called death here, while the others will follow them later on, and they will. Right?